They told you that we'd know when the end was near. But what if it's already begun and almost no one sees it? The signs aren't coming, they're here. And the scariest part, they're hidden in plain sight, approved by science, religion, and the government. And I'm going to show you 3 signs that the end of days has already started right now. Welcome back, guys. Thank you for sticking with us through that whole intro. It was so long, I know, probably hard to keep your attention. But I've got today for you 3 signs that the end times has already begun. Some of you may have heard this before if you've been following this ministry for a while, but some of this you probably have not heard, even if you've been watching this. This is going to be brand new revelation for you. Let's start out by hitting a like and subscribe to our channel. And if you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at firesidegrace.com/partner with us. All the information scrolling right across the bottom. There's our Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, and our mailing address, which is P.O. Box 1285, Judsonia, Arkansas 72081. All of that information will be in the description by the end of this broadcast. So if you're interested and you want to help us out or you want to help support this and what we do, all the information is right there. So let's jump into this. Sign number 3. An explosion of information and knowledge. Now, so this part you probably have heard a little bit of, but I want to touch on it anyway because we are in a time of tremendous access to information and knowledge. We see something like this spoken of in Daniel 12:4 that says, "But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase." Now, what it says in here in Hebrew is "Yes Tito Rabim Wetu Reba Hadat." All right, and this literally translates as "They shall push forward in abundance of knowledge." Push forward in abundance of knowledge. Cunning or cunning. Now, cunning here is an interesting word because it derives from in English. It derives from the root word gnosis. So, for them to push forward in their abundance of knowledge could also be translated as in their abundance of Gnostic teachings. Interesting fact, the whole New Age push is based on Gnosis or Gnostic teachings. And if you do research on the extraterrestrials, non-human intelligence, ETs, whatever you want to call it, who are rapidly feeding our race technology and information that's far too advanced for us, that's their religion as well. And I can cover that at another time. Number 2, interdimensional travel. Now, this one's going to take a little longer to get through, but there is going to be information here directly cited from the CIA, from their website, from a declassified document that I think that you are going to want to hear. Now, one good example that there will be interdimensional travel in the end of days is Amos 9, verses 2 through 4, and it says, "Though they dig into the pit of hell, from there my hand shall take them up. Though they climb up to heaven, from there I will bring them down. And though they hide themselves on top of Carmel, from there I will search and take them. Though they hide from my sight at the bottom of the sea, from there I will command the serpent, and it shall bite them. Though they go into captivity before their enemies, from there I will command the sword, and it shall slay them. I will set my eyes on them for harm and not for good." Now, the word for dig here in verse 2 in Hebrew actually means to force their way through. And it's talking about using your own power to make something move or get somewhere in your own strength and your own power. Kind of like when they would have people rowing boats to make the boats go forward, or how we'd have an engine or a motor or something. And so they would dig into or force their way into hell. Well, hell is not in this dimension. It's in a next dimension, an alternate dimension, or what we would call a different realm. It's in the spirit realm. It's in the earth, but it's in the spirit realm, right? Now, the word for climb here, when it says even though they climb to heaven, is ya'alu, and it means to go up or ascend. Now, does that not sound very new agey to you, or is it just me? Let me know in the comment section if you think that this sounds a little bit new agey to you, right? And And this speaks to me about space travel because it uses the word Hashemayim in Hebrew, which is not only the word for the heavens, but the word for space. So it could say, even if they travel or climb into space, he will bring them down from there. Now, this is where the CIA documentation comes into place, okay? There is documentation that has been released since 2007. This is from 1992. So this documentation shows that the CIA has at least been working on what I'm about to share with you for the last 33 years, but was only recently, within the last 2 decades, released for us to be able to see. Okay? And the title of the document is Flight to Alpha Centauri, right? Now, I'm going to read this. You're going to have to go look this up. I have the link. I can share it with you at the end. I'll put it in the description if you want to read it because there's more to it. This is a few paragraphs from the document that I'm going to read to you that tie in perfectly of what they're talking about. Now I'm going to start reading it here, and I'll tell you when I finish. From the outset, we acknowledge this as a fact. The rumors that the military-industrial complex, which is precisely the owner of Experimental Machine Building Scientific Research Association, is in all seriousness interested in flying saucers and considers them to be real. This is the CIA, folks. I have the document in front of me. It is called Protocol for a Future Method of Aircraft Travel. On top is the customary approved by signature stamp, followed by the signature of the deputy commander of the military unit and his official stamp. Next comes the date and site of the test and the test object. And then there is the objective, at which point it is written that the experiments were conducted to assess the effect of the movement of bulk, high-temperature superconductor subjected to the effect of a flux of fast-moving electrons in accordance with the aircraft research program developed at the Experimental Machine Building Scientific Research and the NTH military unit. Isn't that interesting? So they're talking about some stuff here. Flying saucers, bombarded with electrons, super cooled or superconducting objects, flying saucers that can fly. Here's the next bit. What we are proposing, says Vasily Shabatnik, Senior Scientific Associate of the Experimental Machine Building Scientific Research Association and candidate of technical sciences, is a fundamentally new method of space travel. And we can demonstrate it. So they're saying, we have proof. We can prove to you that we can do this. It is a fundamentally new method, and we can demonstrate it. Here is the so-called Mohammed's Grave A saucer-like body made with a cooled superconductor sailing freely in a magnetic field. Nearly all developers of high-temperature superconducting compounds have toyed around with this focal point, and it has excited its enthusiasts' imaginations. It seems that this is just how one can fly over the earth in some sort of miracle craft. It is possible. There are no theoretical obstacles, but here's the problem. On closer examination, this generally sensible idea turned out to be fraught with irresolvable technical problems, but they resolved the problems. And here's their resolution. The sphere, a circle, an orb, is the ideal shape for interstellar travel. Saucers are best for travel within the atmosphere. So this is 1992. They're saying they've already figured this out. They know that this is a fact and they can demonstrate this, okay? It is therefore obviously necessary to create a craft with a changing geometry. You know how they do that? Carbon graphene. Carbon, who has 6 protons, 6 electrons, and is the 6th element on the periodic table. 666. Just something for you to think about here, okay? The sphere is ideal for interstellar travel, and saucers are best for travel in the atmosphere. It is therefore obviously necessary to create a craft with a changing geometry. It starts from the surface will require only an extremely modest electrical force of about 100 amperes will suffice for a 5-ton spaceship. It will be easy to maneuver by increasing or decreasing the current along both sides. Do you recall yet another sensation that burst forth about the same time as high-temperature superconductivity? I mean, when the discovery of what is called cold thermal nucleus was announced in the United States. This effect was later reproduced in many laboratories. Do you understand what that is? Cold fusion? Just think about that. It was reproduced, but again, left unexplained. And why? Because they tried to find signs of thermonuclear reactions where none exist. I remember those experiments well. I even observed one at the Moscow State University. A tank with heavy water, 2 live electrodes, and no idea where the additional heat was coming from. But if its source was not a cold thermal nucleus, what then was it? We call the phenomenon energy conversion, and that very tank is a primitive model of a converter. That water in it boils. To put it in scientific terms, a phase transitions take place. The particles in the water move in an ordered fashion on account of the electric field. According to our theory, in such cases, phase transitions yield an increased amount of thermal energy. The gain is a factor of 2.12 to 4.2 times higher than the work expended. This person said, wait, does that mean that you have a perpetual motor? The person said, in reality, everything is, of course, more complicated than that. In essence, it's an energy converter that consists of several devices in conjunction with one another. The main components are a closed superconductor and control system. They are for ground needs. The electron accelerator that's connected to the circuit transforms the converter into a spacecraft engine. With its help, a spacecraft can fly to Alpha Centauri and back in 12 years. You know what? That means it has to be going 442,000 or 482,842,900 miles per hour. Do you get that? That's nearly 500 million miles per hour that has to be traveling in order to do that, in order to go to Alpha Centauri and back. If it took 12 years to get to Alpha Centauri, it would be 241,421,986 miles per hour. Take and double that, and you've got nearly 500 million miles per hour that they are saying we can demonstrate this and replicate this because we've done it. And that is from www.ciae.gov/readingrooms/docs/doc/DOC_005516642.pdf. Isn't that interesting? I find it very interesting. So, in order to reach Alpha Centauri in just 12 years, like I said, you'd have to be traveling at 36% light speed. Do you understand what that means? That means that they could, in 1992, travel at 72% the speed of light. 72% the speed of light. Do you understand how fast that is? Let that sink in, that these scientists stated that this was a reproducible result that had already been demonstrated 33 years ago. Imagine what we can do now. I want you to think about that. Because in 2016, the Navy ordered the creation of multiples of these ships that could actually travel outside of time and space due to the amount of gravity that is produced by these unconventional flying crafts. Something for you to think about. You can look it up and find that. Okay? Look it up. You can find it. So that was 33 years ago that started. So everyone's saying, oh, you know, the end of days has begun now in 2025. But according to Scripture and according to what they were able to do 33 years ago, it's already been started. And it's been right under our noses, and it's been hidden because nobody's doing the research. Now, last but not least, one of the biggest, clearest signs that the end has already begun is that we are starting to see the mark of the beast appear. No, it's not some vaccine. It's not some microchip that exists right now. That could play a part in it, but it's not right now. But it is actually something to do with genetic alteration, and we're going to look into that. Where does it say anything about genetic alteration in the Bible? So this is sign number 3, genetic alteration. Where does it say it in the Bible, and where do I have the proof here today? We are going to have a couple verses here. Genesis 4:26, Romans 1:23, Jude 1:7, and Revelation 12:7. Pause it. You can go back and look all these scriptures back up. I will read to them to you. Genesis 4:26, it says, and to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began man to call upon the name of the Lord. In Genesis 4:26, there's an interesting word that's used here that is not translated very well into English, and that's the word huhal. Okay, huhal in English is translated to began to, but that is an interjected translation from a bad translator. Okay, that's not the meaning of the word. This word actually means to defile, to profane, to bore or pierce, to pollute, or to stain. So they began to stain the glory of God, or profane the glory of God. The word profane originally meant to defile the outside of the temple, and today it means to treat something as unholy. So they treated the name as unholy. The word name, the Shem, can be a mark, a memorial, or name. It can mean all three things. So they decided to alter the mark or pollute the mark of God. They decided to alter or pollute or defile the outside of the temple. According to Scripture, our body is the temple of God. Now listen here. Romans 1:20-23 tells us that at the beginning, before the flood, that people altered or transformed the image of God. So let's take a look specifically at Romans 1:23 and see what it says. Romans 1:23, I'm going to have to pull it up here on my screen because I did not copy and paste it. I just looked at it and thought I will be able to remember this in my own head, and I apparently could not. It says, and they exchanged or changed, and they changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man and birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Now, I find that to be extremely interesting that it says that. Now, the word for changed here actually is alaxin, and it means they exchanged or changed. It means that they altered or transformed. So when you go back and read it with that definition, it says they altered and transformed the glory of the uncorruptible God. So something to think about there. Now, according to 1 Corinthians 14, let me find it here. According to 1 Corinthians, it says that we are the image and glory of God. I just want to pull that up real quick here so that we can, it's 1 Corinthians 11:7. It says, a man ought not to cover his head since he is the image and glory of God. So if they altered or exchanged the image of God, they altered or exchanged the image of man. For what? It says, for what? They altered and exchanged it for, so they exchanged their image of God for what? The likeness of an image of mortal man and bird, or mortal man and quadrupeds, or mortal man and creeping things. So they changed and altered their own DNA back then. Then they did it afterwards. And we see that again later on when we get to Genesis chapter 14, or Genesis chapter 11, when it says, let us make a Shem for ourselves. That's saying, let's make a mark for ourselves. Also, the Semite line comes from the name Shem, the Shemites, the Semites, okay? So they said, let's make a Shem for ourselves. Let's make our own lineage with our own Messiah. Isn't that interesting? Something to think about. And who said that? Those were the people in Babel. Those were the people that were in Sodom and Gomorrah. They were the giants after the flood. Well, let's take a look here. Jude 1:7 tells us that they sought after strange flesh. Well, the word used for strange flesh here is sarkos heteros. And heteros means altered or transformed flesh, something of a completely different kind. So they sought after or pursued altered and transformed flesh. They were trying to alter themselves again. Wow. So how does all of this tie into the mark of the beast and into the end of days? Revelation 12:17. It says, and the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now you'd be saying, how does that have anything to do with genetic alteration? I'm glad that you asked, because the word that's used here for made war with is made war meta. Now, the word meta can mean with, but it's most commonly used to mean to change or transform something. It's where we get the word metamorphosis. Or when you watch, let's say, the show The Flash, what they call the genetically altered human beings that have superpowers, they call them metas. But what did they go to alter or transform? It actually says he went to alter or transform her children, and the word for children there is spermata, which literally translates as the seed. So the dragon went to alter or transform the seed of the woman. Who is that? Human beings. Now, where in the Bible have we seen mention of a serpent/dragon and the seed of the woman? The bells are probably going off in your head right now. It is in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, of course, and it says, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." Some of you may be aware of this, and some of you may not, but there's actually a human genetic engineering program that is called CRISPR. CRISPR is short for clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats. And it's a technology that research scientists use to selectively modify the DNA of living organisms. CRISPR was adopted for use in the laboratory from naturally occurring genome editing systems that were found in bacteria. So why are they messing with all these germs and bacteria and making these sicknesses? I'll leave that up to you to decide. The CRISPR-Cas system is explained as this. It says, this bacterial immune system can be engineered to target and precisely modify specific DNA sequences. Phage-based DNA delivery. And this is talking about a virobacterial phage, which is a type of virus. So this is the phage-based DNA delivery system. So how do they alter the bacteria? They send in a virophage that alters the bacteria. The bacteria replicates itself, and then it starts to transform things. Some bacteria have the ability to transform human genomes. I'm just going to put that out there. Okay. Now listen to this. Bacteriophage viruses are viruses that infect bacteria. They can be engineered to deliver DNA editing tools like CRISPR-Cas machinery. CRISPR-Cas machinery. Do you know what that's made out of? Carbon fiber, carbon graphene, 666, carbon graphene. Something for you to think about, okay? CRISPR-Cas machinery into specific bacterial species within a microbial community. What else can it do? Natural DNA modification. Bacteria can also alter DNA naturally through mechanisms like, you might have heard this before a few years ago, horizontal gene transfer. Bacteria can exchange genetic material through processes like transduction, mediated by bacteriophages, conjugation, which is direct transfer via a pilus, and transformation, which is the uptake of free DNA. So I'm just going to leave that there, and I'm going to let you draw your own conclusions. Drop a comment for me in the comment section and let me know, has this blown your mind? Is this new to you? Is this something that you were aware of, but you couldn't put the pieces together? Do you want to know how the mark of the beast is going to come into place and be implemented? It has to do with that carbon graphene technology, which has the 666 carbon graphene. When you look at it, a carbon molecule goes in a hexagon, which is 6 sides. 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 sides, and CARBON, 6 letters. Carbon graphene has the ability to change forms and change shape. And they actually use it in some technology today to cause the shapes of certain crafts to be able to change and transform. And this is documented stuff that you can look up if you want to do the research. So what do you think about this? What are your thoughts and comments about this revelation and how this could pertain to the mark of the beast? And do you think that we're about to see this rolled out on mankind any day now? Let me know.